Well, before I begin my homily, I just have to give a shout out to two of some of my very favorite graduates that are back in town and visiting me. And I don't mean to embarrass you, Morgan and Bridget, but it's so awesome to see you guys. And what I love about having you at Mass this Sunday, and this is a part of Providence, is that you didn't know this, but this gospel is actually about you guys. We're like, what? Father Brian, what? So why does this gospel remind me of Morgan and Bridget? So as you all know, I'm a high school chaplain, and so I love all of your kids that come to Lumen Christi. And one of the things that you remember from your olden days, of your old high school days when you're a chaplain at a high school, is that everyone of younger age that is young, hip, and cool speaks their own lingo, right? You guys have like your own language, and like if you're in the in crowd and you know what it means, then you're cool. But if not, just like don't worry about it. What does that word mean? Don't worry about it. If you don't know, don't worry about it. So this is why I love, right, my students, because they teach me all of the lingo. You know, they teach me the meaning of all of these cool young hip words like sus and flex and extra. So this is when I found out, like when I wasn't cool anymore, like when I didn't know the lingo anymore. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm old. I didn't think I was old, but then you get old and you're like, dang it. All right, so we all know this, right? We all have had this experience. We all like being part of the in crowd. You know when you have like code language and you're like, huh? Do you know? Huh? And if you know, it makes you feel special. But if you don't know, you're like, ah, dang it. And we kind of want to clue on it. We want to be part of what's going on. So we're going to do that today because this gospel is all about high school. It's all about code language. It's all about knowing what we're actually hearing when we hear the words. So we're going to get a little smart today. I'm going to do a little bit of a scripture study with you on this gospel because not only does it make us part of the in crowd, but it's also going to open up for us something just more deep and incredible about the words that are actually being used when God is revealing what he means when he says he loves you. And so I want to just focus this entire homily on the last two sentences of Jesus in this morning's gospel. Jesus says this, rather, whoever wishes to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So if we were part of the young, hip, in cool crowd, and Jesus used those words in our presence, we would be like, oh, I know what you mean. I get it. Because these are very specific vocabulary words. But if you grow up in like 21st century Western civilization in the United States of America, like we listen to those words and we're like, I understand the meaning of those words, but do you know the innuendo? Do you understand the double entendre? Can you see beneath the surface? Because if you were part of the in, hip, and cool crowd, you would hear those words from Jesus and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's Leviticus 25. Of course, yeah, that's right, the year of Jubilee, ransom of debts, right? Now, we don't know all these things, but when Jesus uses these words, this is exactly where he's going. I want to read some of this to you. When Jesus speaks about becoming a servant, when he speaks about making himself a slave, and about giving his life as ransom for many, which was the Jewish idiom that meant for all, Jesus is going to the book of Leviticus, about 1,300 years prior, or thereabouts, during the time of Moses, the law of Moses, and the writing of all of the things. Now, in the 25th chapter of the book of Leviticus, of all things, it speaks about this concept that God creates called the Jubilee year. One of the things that God does at the beginning of all creation is he creates all things out of his own interior order. And so even in the creation accounts of the first chapter of the book of Genesis, it says God created all things in 6 days. Right? He takes 6 periods or 6 waves, 6 big motions of action, right? And then it says, after God had made all of these things, the completeness of creation, including his most prized possession on the last day, the human race, the very last pinnacle of creation, God says on the 7th day, he He rested, and he called it holy, and he gave the seventh day a name, which was the Sabbath. You guys are awesome. You know your Bible. He called the seventh day the Sabbath day, the day of rest. Now, when he chose his people, the people of Israel, he says, you shall live your life and act in accord with the pattern that I have already set in creation. And so he says this, in your living with each other, in your commerce with each other, for 6 years you shall do your work, and you shall sow your seed, and you shall reap the fruit of your harvest. But on the seventh year for you shall be a Sabbath year. And on the Sabbath year you shall not sow, and you shall not reap, but you shall eat of the produce of the blessing that I have given to you in your 6th year. God says, if you heed my voice, if you live by my law and my statutes, I will give you in your 6th year of harvest a triple blessing of produce, so that you shall have grain enough to eat in the 6th year, in the 7th year, the Sabbath year, and even in the 8th year when you plant your new seed again and wait for your next harvest. And God goes further, and he says, when you have completed 7 Sabbath years, that is 7 times 7 years. 7, right, in the biblical numerology is this great number of completion, right? It's like a number of perfection. And when God says, when you have done the cycle of perfection, the perfect number of times, 7 times 7, you shall come to 49 years. And thereupon, on the 50th year, the year that follows, all the completion, that 50th year shall be the year of Jubilee. Now, God says something really important about the Jubilee year that has everything to do with the gospel. And I want to read that for you. This is the 25th chapter of the book of Leviticus. God said to his people, the 50th year you shall make sacred by proclaiming liberty in the land for all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, when every one of you shall return to his own property, everyone to his own family estate. In this 50th year, your year of Jubilee, you shall not sow, nor shall you reap the aftergrowth or pick the grapes from the untrimmed vines. In this year of Jubilee, then, every one of you shall return to his own property. Therefore, when you sell any land to your neighbor or buy any from him, do not deal unfairly. On the basis of the number of years since the last Jubilee shall you purchase the land from him. And so also on the basis of the number of years for crops shall he sell it to you. When the years are many, the price shall be so much the more. When the years are few, the price shall be so much the less. For it is really the number of crops that he sells you. Do not deal unfairly then, but stand in fear of your God. I, the Lord, am your God. So one of the things that God is setting up in his own nation and his chosen people is a kind of economic justice between them all, so that they can know truly what God has established. Because God says that in the year of Jubilee, all debts are forgiven. Everybody goes back to their own properties that they may have sold in payment of other debts of their own. Everyone goes back to their own possessions. Everyone returns to their own families, even if they have sold themselves into service. For every 50 years is like the great divine reset. And I forgive all debts, for I am the Lord your God. And he says that you are so holy and you are so sacred to me that this shall include your conduct with the pagan nations that surround you. So in the ancient commerce, if I had a debt to pay, I could pay it with money. I might be able to barter it for food or for crops or from artifacts that I made of my own making, if I'm a smith or some sort of creator of things. I might, if I had a large debt, even be able to pay my own family heritage, my land. And if I was so in debt that none of these things could repay the debt, I was allowed even to sell myself. I could sell myself into service for payment of a debt. But no matter what it is that I sold, if it came from my heritage or from my property, it was always understood that it was never to be paid and to be sold in perpetuity. But everybody knew that everybody was going to get back everything that was theirs every Jubilee, because God forgives all debts. And so God says this: even when one of your countrymen is reduced to such poverty that he sells himself to a wealthy alien who has a permanent or temporary residence among you, or to one of the descendants of an immigrant family, even after he has thus sold his services, God says this: he still has the right of redemption. He still retains the right of redemption, or the right of ransom. He may be redeemed by one of his own brothers, or by his uncle or cousin, or by some other relative or fellow clansman. Or if he acquires the means, he may redeem himself. With his purchaser, he shall compute the years from the sale of the Jubilee, distributing the sale price over these years as though he had been hired a day laborer. The more such years there are, the more of the sale price shall he pay back as ransom. The fewer the years there are left before the Jubilee year, the more he has to his own credit. In proportion to his years of service shall he pay his ransom. This is all building upon the case that Jesus is making, because he says this: even if you sell yourself into servitude, into slavery, you always retain the right, by fact of being my chosen people, to redeem yourself, or to be redeemed, to be ransomed by one of your own clansmen. And all they have to do is come and pay the monetary value of the debt that remains between now and the Jubilee to get you back. But God says, if he is not thus redeemed, either himself or by his clansmen, he shall nevertheless be released, together with his children, in the Jubilee year. For to me the Israelites belong as servants. They are servants of mine, because I brought them out of the land and the slavery of Egypt. I, the Lord your God. So God says, you must know this. In the end, you cannot belong to any slave master or bondholder. In the end, you belong to me. You are my servant. And God establishes this as being unique to the kingdom of Israel. Because all of the pagan nations that surrounded the kingdom of Israel, did they play by the rules of the year of the Jubilee? Absolutely not. If you were in a neighboring pagan nation and you sold yourself into slavery, when did you get to be free? Never. And if you happened to have children while you were in bondage, while you were in slavery, when did your children get to be free? Never. And if their children had children, when did they? Never. The rules are not fair for you. You are out of luck. Because if you become a slave and you sell yourself into slavery in any other nation other than Israel, it's a forever reality. Literally, your only hope of redemption from your pagan slaveholder is whether you can somehow convince them for your freedom to pay them something. But if they don't want, who says they have to? And even if you try to escape or rise up, the chances are, if push comes to shove, they can compel you by force to remain a slave, because they have lots of men with big clubs and swords that can either kill you or arrest you and take you back to your place of slavery. All of this, I know, we're coming back around. Stay with me. All of this is part of the code language that Jesus is using when he says, in order to be great, you shall be the slave of all. You shall be the slave of all. And then, in speaking of himself, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. This is enormous what Jesus is saying, because Jesus is already talking to people whom God has already given rules about what it means to be in debt and what it means to be ransomed from debt. Because if you owe a debt, God says, here are the rules for how you repay that to gain your freedom. And even if you can't do that, one of your kinsmen can do it for you. And even if your kinsman can't do that for you, every Jubilee, you are forgiven. God has already established the rules for ransom. And yet he says here, I am going to become a servant. I am going to become a slave. I'm going to give my life as a redemption, as a ransom for many. You see, here is what he's saying in these words. Jesus says, y'all got a problem, and I'm part of y'all. Y'all got a problem. Because if we were simply talking about some exterior constraint, some exterior debt, some material need, all of that would already have been figured out. You could measure it out. You can count the cost. You can pay that back. But evidently, that's not the kind of problem we have, because it would have solved itself in minimum in 50 years. You see, our debt is not an exterior debt that can be repaid with limited exterior means. Our debt is an interior debt, because what we sold was not our possessions nor our property, but our souls. We sold our souls into slavery. We traded what we thought was going to be wisdom or power or influence. And in trying to obtain that, we said, here, have my soul. So, Morgan and Bridget, if I wanted to pay for your soul, could I give you $1 million in exchange for your soul? Okay. What if I gave you, all right, what if I gave you $1 trillion? Could I pay you $1 trillion in exchange for your soul? Okay. What if I took every single thing of any value on the entire face of the earth, and I put that in a big pile, and I said, here, I'll exchange everything of material value on the face of the earth for your soul. Could I pay for your soul? If I tried to put a price tag on your soul, could I do so? Because how much is a soul worth? It's priceless. It's priceless. Your soul is of infinite value. And therein lies the conundrum. Because if you are in debt, an infinite value, how do you ransom? How do you redeem what has infinite value? And here's what God did. He says, I know, Leviticus 25. I say this by my own rules, that you can be redeemed if you cannot redeem yourself. And clearly we can't, because you have nothing else of infinite value that you possess to yourself that you can pay in exchange for your old soul back, can you? You can't gain enough wealth in the world to pay for your soul back. You can't gain enough power over the world to exchange for your soul back. You can't be influential enough. You can't know enough lingo. You can't distract yourself long enough. You can't make yourself feel good enough in exchange for your soul. But God says this, if you cannot redeem yourself, one of your clansmen, one of your own flesh can redeem you. And this is exactly what he did. God took to himself your flesh and your blood. And when God took to himself your flesh and your blood, he gained for himself the right to ransom you. Now, in gaining the right to ransom you, God has to buy back something of infinite value. How do you purchase what is of infinite value? There is only one way that you can pay for something which is priceless, and that is to exchange it for something else that is priceless. And so Jesus says, I will make myself a slave of all, so that I may serve and give my life as a ransom for all. Jesus attained for himself something of infinite value, so that by giving that thing of infinite value, his own life, to the bondholder, the slaveholder, sin, with his pals, suffering, death, and Satan, who held us not as God holds us, but as the pagan nations hold us, forever and ever and ever. And God said, I will become their kin and exchange what I have of an infinite value to buy back for God the servants that he calls his own. And isn't that incredible? That God found a way to play by his own rules to free you and to free me from the slavery of our souls to sin, suffering, and death, so that we could come back and be rightful servants of God again. And he didn't just do that. He went one step further, which is even more incredible, because God says, I'm not just going to play by my own rules. I'm going to play by sin's rules. Because sin doesn't play by the year of Jubilee. Sin doesn't give back its debtors every 50 years. Neither does suffering, neither does death, neither does Satan. You know what rule they play by? They play by the rule finders keepers. They play by the rule might makes right. They say, you're my slave now, and there's actually nothing that you can do to free yourself. And even if you try to free yourself, I'm stronger than you. And if push comes to shove, I can compel you to return to me. So God says, let's play by those rules. God used his own rules to buy you from slavery. And then he played by Satan's rules to say, oops, I'm still God. I sell myself to the bondholder, slavery of sin, suffering, and death. But because I am God, I am all good. And what is evil cannot touch me. And because I am God, I am all powerful. And no contrived evil can stop me. So I will use my rules to save my people from slavery, and I will use your rules to save myself from slavery. And that's exactly what he did. He died, but he still freed himself from death. And you want to know what we call that? Checkmate. Or as I like to say, the double fist pump, come on. Isn't that awesome? I'm just like, what a great idea. I know it deserves a round of applause. Like, yay, God, like, we were out of good ideas. We were out of good ideas. We had no way in order to pay back what we had to pay back. And God says, let me tell you, watch me. I'm going to put both hands behind my back. Just wait and see. This is why we love Jesus. This is why we follow Jesus. Because he has the payment that we owe. And he makes the decision to love us so much as to exchange what is of infinite value to get us back. Because he wants you to be free. And he yet has power to make himself free. And we love Jesus so much for that. Because such is the way that God loves us.